to send it to the Select Committee.
Melissa Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is a disappointment that the Green Party doesn't actually support this bill, because I thought they were actually concerned about the welfare of children. However, I am very glad that the Labour Party supports this, because we will actually debate this issue in Select Committee and hear from the submitters, and that will be a good opportunity to see where the country is actually at. So, it is a great pleasure to rise in support of the Child Support Amendment Bill, first reading, which the Minister Dunn has actually introduced into the House. New Zealand Child Support Scheme provides financial support for more than 210,000 children in this country, sir. Many parents do reach private agreement on how they are going to split their financial and care responsibility for their children. And I'm among one of those people. I am a sole mother, I am a divorcee, and I have come to an agreement with my ex-husband on how we were in fact looking after my child and how we were actually going to be taking responsibility both financially and for the care of my son. There are many who can't come to this kinds of agreement, and that is when the child support scheme actually kicks in. The scheme was created back in 1992 to provide a backup. A lot of people have actually talked about this as a backup for those who can't agree on how their financial and care responsibility are shared among the parents, and how to support their children in the best possible way. It also applies when the recipient of that support is on a benefit, which is a government payment, and so it should be rightly so. This is because the primary assumption is that the paying parent is in fact the sole income earner, and in the past it has been so, and that the receiving parent is in fact the main care provider for the child. So, as you know, society has actually changed, and the main care provider isn't necessarily just the mother. Often it is the father who actually stays at home with the child, and so we need to hear from the men who are in fact the sole carer of the children as well. I think it will be very, very interesting Select Committee to hear from the people who are in that particular situation. And it is really wrong to assume as well, because there will be a lot of fathers out there who are in fact in this situation, and they'll be wanting to make sure that the system is in fact fair to them as well. For majority of parents, the current scheme actually works, as it is a straightforward way of calculating liability, but there are concerns that the scheme is out of date, as other speakers have actually mentioned earlier. Many parents have an agreement to share the care, as I said, and the cost for their children, but often the arrangements do not qualify as shared care for the purposes of the current child support formula, and that the current payment liabilities do not accurately reflect the true expenditure involved in raising children in New Zealand. So the changes in this amendment are to allay these concerns, to make the system fairer and more transparent, that the calculation for child support payments will take a wider range of individual circumstances into consideration. So perhaps I should have actually considered that my child was going to grow up and was going to in fact eat me out of home and house when we actually agreed on a financial agreement between my husband and I, because as a teenager, teenagers' needs are quite different to a child who is actually in nappies as well. So I'm very pleased that the new amendment takes into these kinds of accounts, that the cost for young child is quite different to the amounts that are in fact needed for teenagers who are in a home who actually eats you out of home and house. The bill also includes changes to rules on payment for child support, penalties and writing off of penalties, and I like to sort of talk about some of those, sir. The basic summary of the changes to this amendment will be based on the following three factors, sir. A wider recognition of shared care, and because both parents are often working, I think it is unfair to sort of consider that, assume that maybe it is only one parent who's solely in charge. And that the shared care needs to be recognised, that sometimes parents in fact do know what is best, and they do actually care for children. And I think when we talk about 28%, it's 2 nights, and those parents who actually do care for their children for 2 nights should be recognised as well, instead of just 40% threshold. The income of both parents will be considered, and the estimated average expenditure for raising children in New Zealand will be taken into consideration, sir. And the thing that I like to sort of talk about is the current formula, where it recognises the 40% of nights where if my child was to stay with his father for 40 nights, that is only recognised. But what about if he was staying there for 2 nights? His father is taking responsibility, and he is actually paying towards my son, so I think it would be unfair to assume that he isn't. And I think having that tiered threshold is very, very important, and I think going towards the fairness of this amendment bill. The income component of the amendment takes into consideration that if a paying parent has the other dependent children, it would be, wouldn't it be fantastic if we could actually pay as much as we can to every single child that are in our household? But often, when you actually look at a parent who is actually liable, who might, as I think Holly Walker actually said, go into a different relationship, that person has a responsibility to the new partner and also another child, perhaps that that relationship creates. And what kind of responsibility does that father or mother actually have? Equal responsibility, I would have hoped. But the thing is that that person only has one income. And I think we need to be fair and decide what is in fact a fair amount that liable parent should pay towards the child that they are liable for. So this is a good bill, and I look forward to the debates that we are going to have in the Select Committee, and I look forward to the submissions from the public, especially to the by the parents who actually have the personal experience that they can bring to the Select Committee for us to consider. I commend this bill to the House.
Andrew Williams.
Thank you, Mr.